Hello and welcome to everybody. Good evening and welcome to Edukemy's YouTube channel. My name is Harsh Singh and in this video we shall discuss the feature news for today, that is 7th of January 2021. Today's featured news is on a very interesting topic: suspension of telecom services and internet in our country and its impact. Now, this is a topic that demands in-depth understanding. Oh, yes. Does it understand some level of facts? Yes, absolutely. So let's deal with it one by one. Before that, allow me to welcome all of you. Good evening, Hima. Good evening, Amlan. Hi, Netra. Thank you, Ashish, for coming back. Hello, Kriti. Good evening. Hi, Ravi. Rubani, thank you. And then we have Chitanshi, Ravi. All right, great. So, thank you for being a part. This is late in the evening, and you have had 2 sessions already. Thank you for being here. And I really acknowledge the attempt by everybody to be with me, even despite some issues with the audio. Thank you. It really counts. So, suspension of telecom services and internet in its impact in country. Do you know India is called as the internet shutdown capital of the world? Internet shutdown capital of the world. It is because India faces 75% of the losses in value addition that could have had the internet services not been disabled. In fact, since the year 2012, India has had 600 plus internet shutdowns, telecom services being withheld by the government, and more than 50% of it have happened post 2019. More than 50% of it, right? Not only that, Jammu and Kashmir has witnessed one of the longest tenures for internet and telecom services withdrawal, around 550 days, right? Almost 2 years of lockdown, and it has costed a lot to this particular economy. Therefore, on one hand, if we see that if internet and telecom services are curbed, it is because of public security. These are the words that the government uses, right? Public security and public safety. This is the other word that the government says. These are mentioned as a part of the temporary suspension of telecom services rules 2017. They talk of public security and public safety, on the lieu of which these kind of barriers are imposed. On the other hand, we see huge losses in economy, issues in society, issues which relate to individual autonomy. What about Article 14, right to equality, right to freedom, right to life and personal liberty? All of them are violated through this, right? Imagine a service like education, it gets all delinked when we do not have the provision of internet at that particular place. So this is the reason that India has been called as internet shutdown capital of the world. There are various aspects of the law which are vague in nature, which need to be streamlined. And this is the reason there is a committee formed in the parliament, Standing Committee on Communication and Information Technology. It has published a report on what is the present context of telecom services internet suspension and what is the prospect for future. How can it be handled well in the future? See, when the government imposes these kind of restrictions, first of all, many of them are imposed by the state governments, right? Because law and order is a state subject. So when the state imposes this, the central government does not have a complete list of the impositions of telecom services and internet suspension. There is a disconnect between center and state. This is one issue. Note that when the government imposes these kind of norms, they can sometimes be against in a matter of protest. When the people are protesting particular policies of the government, even if it is a peaceful protest, there have been times when the government has enabled the suspension. So these are violating people's rights, right? Not only that, there are times when the government suspends these kind of services. Those times when NGOs have reported that the state was indulging in violence, the state itself, and they have imposed a suspension of internet. Whereas the state services people will be using walkie-talkies, they will be using sat phones, but other people, local people, will not be able to, protest or know their whereabouts or go any places. So there is a complete disparity between what the government should be doing and what it is currently doing as far as suspension of telecom services is concerned. This is a serious concern highlighted by the standing committee. Right? So if you see on the right side here, we have provided an image talking of state violence, public violence, protest, extremist violence, misinformation, political events, religious conflicts, and cheating. These are the issues because of which the government is, creating these kind of suspensions. There was a case in Rajasthan where the government imposed suspension of internet because it felt that they would be cheating through internet. But what was reported was that cheating still went on without the use of internet. So the idea is, if this is a kind of service for people, the idea is to ensure that this service is made available to people, and there are ways and norms which can be taken out so that people are also subjected to peace. People are subjected to less of problems in their particular region without the shutting down of internet. Is it not that these problems don't occur in a developed country like US or France? Yes, they do. Do they shut down internet all the times? No, they do not. They have different mechanisms for surveillance, for catching the one who is in penalty, right? So public emergency and public safety, if these are two important concerns, they could be addressed in different ways, right? So this is how India will become a country which does not depend on internet shutdown. All right. Now, these temporary rules, these rules that were initiated, temporary suspension of telecom services rules, they are also not in consonance with other rules. For example, the Telegraph Act, which also tells about when the internet should be suspended. In this act, there has been no mention of public safety. There's been no mention of the issues of public security during which times there should be suspension of internet. So when the act itself, and whereas this act is the one through which one can get empowered to disable the internet services, the government does not, that means there is a complete disregard to the act, and there is no sync with the act and with the particular rules. This also indicates that the kind of, I must say, unconstitutional and not legally mandated, not constitutionally mandated, non-parliamentary mandated imposition of lockdowns. See, this also causes huge economic losses, $3 billion of losses between 2012 and 2017. In fact, for every hour of lockdown, 2 crore plus, this is a good example for you, 2 crore plus rupees is spent or it is lost by the value providers in case there is a lockdown for an hour. 2 crore plus. Imagine the people who are dependent on internet services. Now there are many, right? We have this provider of gig economy, right? All the aggregators, right? Aggregators of food, aggregators of cab, aggregators of services. For example, Corona pandemic, everything is getting delivered at home. E-commerce, right? Aggregator of blood samples, right? So 1 mg, one good brand by Tata, but then if internet is not available, these services will not be available to people. Imagine these are the times where we are dependent more on internet services, and government is disabling internet services for people in lieu of those kind of norms which are not accepted by which were not found by the parliament, right? So this is where it questions the human rights also of individuals, right? So many of these, in 2020, many of these shutdowns, they directly impinged on human rights of the people, directly impinged, because freedom of press, freedom of social media, freedom to be able to access information online, all this was restricted to people, right? This is another important aspect of it. Another important aspect is the aspect of governance. There is no e-governance. There is no mechanism for the government to connect to people through online means. And government is enforcing only online mechanism these days, no? I would like to give an example. Now, for example, during these times of pandemic, now the government says that it will take 1 day for you to get your RT-PCR report. And it will take 1 day for you to get admitted in the hospital. 1 day, within 1 day, we can get admitted in case we have severe corona. So it takes effectively maybe 1 day to gather the symptoms. Next day, I get myself tested, and then it takes effectively 3 days for one to get admitted in the hospital. Imagine this. So, is this not a setup in which there is a effective delay of provision of justice? Yes. Similar is the setup of lockdown and suspension of internet during the times of crisis. Good governance again becomes a question. A very similar case here as well, right? So, if you can imagine the social sector services, education, health, anything that was present online that will not be present online at all, right? So, look at the social issues. Look at the constitutional impingements. This is how you should be able to diversify your perspective. Look at the economy. Kashmir's economy, more than 90% of tourism, it got declined because of no presence of internet, right? Because internet was not there, people would not feel very much secure. If internet is there, people know their locations. People are able to move from one place to another. People can reach out to their nearer and dearer ones. So, social impact, economic impact, personal impact, constitutional impact, there are so many issues. It also impacts individual lives, right? Various sections of society, women, children, school-going children. What about elderly? It impacts a lot of people in many, many ways. And therefore, if you look at the recommendations and the present situation, you would be surprised to see the kind of difference that exists in the country and what ought to be in the country. The current position is such that the emergency can be declared up to 15 days at once. But many a time, this emergency is extended at that particular place, right? And the idea has been to review these kind of rules. Supreme Court has also said this. Similarly, this public emergency and public safety has never become a part of the Telegraph Act at all. And we are trying to impose restrictions which are never defined in Telegraph Act. Right? So there should be a sync in the act and the complete channelization of the act. That is how the rules are executed. Right? We need to have a database of how many times India shut down its internet and what was the reason for it. Central government doesn't have it right now. Right? So state governments impose whenever the need be, and this is where. All right, tomorrow I will explain you the difference between IPC 144 curfew and lockdown. We will understand this difference tomorrow, right? So this is the reason that the DCDM, in consonance with Chief Secretary or the Chief Minister, they impose these kind of impositions of 15-day of internet services banning in a particular region, and there is of course misutilization on the part of the state at times, right? There are review committees to be able to review these kind of laws, but they are executive determined. We should have these kind of reviews where parliament, where legislature is also questioning the acts of the executive. There should be standard operating procedures. कब हमें internet ban करना है? And what are the significant reasons for which we have to ban internet? These reasons have to be listed down. It is not dependent only on executive, because executive is only an organ of the government, no? And the whole state has provided us this kind of freedom to exercise independence on internet. So why is only executive determining this? Why not legislature and judiciary also participating? Legislature and judiciary have different opinions. So this is where all the bodies of the state must be in sync. Look at the fourth pillar, media, always in question, and this is where media rights are also questioned. Social media rights of people, right? Print media, all of them stand, they stand in a very, very tough situation when these kind of norms are imposed. This is where the government says, the particular committee says that internet shutdown must be used as the last resort. At the last resort, in case of any default, misinformation happening, any public safety or security issue, this should be the last resort. But it is not the last resort as of now. For ease of governance, ease of policing, ease of law and order situation, government imposes these kind of bans, which is not justified. Right? It has to protect citizens' rights. It needs to ensure that there should be a procedure for lifting internet shutdowns. In Kashmir, what happened was there were repeated requests put on by people, PILs filed by people, and then the court case they took and said it is necessary to restore the 4G connection in internet, and 2G will not survive more than 500 days. And after 550 days, this was done. Right? So this is the reason why we need to study these shutdowns, right? See, look at the kind of economic impact in the country, right? 2.8 billion. This is almost 74% of the value lost globally. Not only that, governance is itself crippled, right? Just dali par baithe, we are cutting that dali only. Right? Human rights getting infringed, human individual rights, impact on health services, education services, impact on population. Right? So you got to note down these aspects, and you got to also present governance aspect. What is the government aspect? That it needs to impose when the state is not in a control, then only it imposes these kind of lockdowns. So when we talk of the issue of suspension of internet services, you got to look at the data, right? India becoming the suspension of internet capital of the whole world, the kind of value loss that India has, the number of days or the percentage of the suspensions happening lately. Now, we should not get political about any government in power. We should mention in a way that, for example, the kind of social security issues, they have risen dramatically in the later times. The involvement of people in social media, internet has increased with time. The kind of crimes happening, it gets accelerated because of internet, and that is why shutting down internet is also an aspect. So we have to prove that side, which the government, which the UPSC is actually asking. This is why data is there for, right? Then we have to present 2-3 aspects of what are the issues of these kind of suspensions. So I mentioned personal issues, human rights, then economic issues, social issues, right? Rights issues, sector of economy or people issues, many issues are here, right? And then what are the pretext on which government does these kind of activities? So these pretexts, or what are the issues and what are the inconsistency? This is the most important part, inconsistency, because if you understand the inconsistency, this is where the critical analysis is, right? And this is where the recommendations of the parliamentary committee also exist. For example, government must maintain a logbook of this. The government must ensure that there should be a standard operating procedure for imposing sanctions or lifting up these kind of curbs, right? There must be consistency between the rules, right, and the act of the Parliament, Telegraph Act, and there must be proper body to impose these kind of restrictions. There must be also a review, legislative review of these kind of acts, right? So these are the various ways in which you can understand the issue of suspension of internet and telecom services in the country, right? The question for today is, India faces the dichotomy of ever rising digital penetration, absolutely true, along with frequent curtailment of internet. See, one hand we say digital penetration should be there, other hand we only curtail it. What explain this dichotomy? How can this dichotomy be resolved to benefit the Indian democracy? So what is the dichotomy, right? Security versus people's right, public safety versus people's autonomy, their choices, individual freedom, the choices over governance, and the rights of people for under Article 19, right to freedom. And then how can this dichotomy be resolved to benefit the Indian democracy? This is the part of analysis where you will balance all the thoughts, right? And this is where the play of words, a very smart play of words will be required from your end, right? So this is how we understand this particular issue. Let me read out the comments if there are important ones here. So we have Ashish saying, mine wasn't working. Great. Right. Okay. Even that you on the discussion, Ashish, you are in a practical class. All right. Great. Great. Interesting conversation with you people. If you like this initiative, do share some love on us through likes, comments, and shares. Subscribe to the channel. You will receive timely updates. And this is Friday evening. We will sign off. We will meet Monday evening. Hopefully, everybody will be safe by then. And keep safe times of Omicron. Not only that, tomorrow evening we do have, tomorrow at 3 p.m. and at 7 p.m. we do have discussions, live discussion on GS paper 1 and GS paper 2. And then we have other discussions on Monday 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. right, on GS paper 3 and GS paper 4, right, ethics paper. Meanwhile, 6 p.m. we will begin sharp at 6 p.m. the discussion on the current affairs, and 6:45 for 15 minutes for the feature news on Monday, right? So we will meet sharp at 6 p.m. on Monday. Please take note of that. right? And what else? I was asked a question by Chetanshi, sir, which is the kind of question that you will pick for your essay paper, right? So the question that I would have picked up would be the one that relates to, just a bit accessing the question paper, I would have picked up the process of self-discovery, which has now been technologically outsourced. Such a simple one. We have discussed so many aspects of it. See, we are talking of discovery, the process of self-discovery. What is self-discovery? Self-discovery can be related to not only the external discovery of self through cameras, through intelligent automatic devices. This is also moral discovery. This is the discovery of what we are at the level of our emotions. And this discovery, emotions, spirituality, and this is a particular aspect of it that I want to discuss, that this discovery has been outsourced to technology. You know how? The Generation Z, Generation X, Generation Y, the newer generations, we are all dependent on Instagram. We are all dependent on Facebook. We are all dependent on the kind of inputs that we receive from people. And these validations make us understand who we are. This is self-discovery. So I found it very interesting. We can explore various dimensions of this. Earlier, self-discovery was through meditation, through yogic karma practices, through inputs, through thoughtfulness. Right now, this has been technologically outsourced. See, so I would have explored various dimensions of the self-discovery, right, through artificial intelligence devices, through social media, through opinion of others, right, through parenting techniques. We need validation from people these days, right? And self-discovery has been outsourced to technology, right? And look at now I would have also disintegrated the process of self-discovery in population-wise. So for elder people, the discovery for their own self is through technology. So through technology of medicine, they would be able to explore themselves, right? Like technologically outsourced. For people who are in education services, right? Instead of going to classes, the educations are getting conducted online. See? Various dimensions of it. No? If I presented 15 dimensions right now, 15 dimensions into 15 words per sentence, this comes to 225 words already. We have to write 800 to 1000 or 1000 words. Imagine this. And I have already completed 1/4 of the answer with unique points. Only one sentence on one point. If you look at this from that perspective, your answer is built. Similarly, I would have gone ahead with the what is research but a blind date with the knowledge? I would have gone with this question. What is research but a blind date with knowledge? Now, a very, very simple one. See, they're talking of research. You know what is a blind date? We go to meet somebody and we have not known anything about them. We don't know their name, we don't know their age, we don't know anything about them, but we go to meet them, see if it is a match, see if it works or not. So, research, I have spoken of so many times to this. This is directly on the current affairs. There are times when research says something and analysis says something else. Remember this. Remember the intimate partner violence. Chilla chilla ke thak gaya hu main. The government says intimate partner violence has reduced, right? Violence at home has reduced, but United Nations says no, more violence after lockdown. So research is a blind date, with knowledge, right? Knowledge is different and research is different. Similarly, when we talk of increase in self-employment, is it true? Research says no, but the knowledge says that yes, it is so. Similarly, there are issues that relate to many other aspects of life. The corona itself. Corona research says that this could have been, the vaccinations are foolproof, but then we come to know, no, vaccinations are not foolproof. It happens slowly and steadily, So research is a blind date with knowledge. Had I provided 20 examples like this would have been the most powerful thing to do for me. Examiner would have understood, yes, this person knows. And examiner also is reading current affairs, no? So they would have understood this. This is why I would pick up these questions, right? So if you like this initiative, do share some love on us through likes, comments, and shares. Subscribe to this channel. You will receive amazing updates on future articles as well, right? So, Bhavani says, sir, are you not the part of main answer discussion? You will find me discussing all of this in current affairs, Bhavani. There will be other friends of mine discussing this. And sir, Chitanshi says you look like Ashish Vidyarthi. I will have to look at Ashish Vidyarthi now. Stay safe, all of you. Amlan, Babani, Netra, Kriti, Chitanshi, Ravi, Anonymity, all of you, be aware of Omicron and take care of yourself. There are questions, doubts, all of you. I will keep a check. So please put them down. And thank you for being a part. This is 9 o'clock, late evening on Friday. Thank you for your commitment. It shows, it reflects in your actions. Please provide 0.01% extra to yourself. Please do remember that formula. 1.02 to the power 365 is equivalent to 600 to 700, whereas 1.00, no efforts will for 365 days will lead to only one, and efforts with me will lead you to go to around 35. With me 35, but with me along with notes preparation, it leads to 600 to 700. You will skyrocket like one of the rockets of Elon Musk, right? And also land back on Earth with the full integrity of the rocket, right? So I urge you to write down your quick notes as well. Thank you for participation. All right. So welcome all of you. Yes, Bhavani, in fact, if you say how easily I mentioned this is because all these topics are inside my mind. And if you are a part of it, they will be there with you as well, provided you keep revising all of this, right? And this is what I want from you people, diversity of opinions, and so much so that there is no fear of questions. There would have been other questions which we would have done. And we will do that. One by one, we'll keep picking up these questions with current affairs, right? So thank you for being a participant. And I would like you to keep noting the improvements that you have, provided you make notes. Right? Thank you and good night. Respect all your participation. Great